All right, so I'm here at the CPHC forum with Cassandra Goldie, who's given the keynote address this morning. A really kind of personal look at your journey into being an advocate in social welfare. So could you touch on that a little bit?
Sure. Look, so I was adopted as a baby and came to learn the reason for that, and it was essentially because my mother had to make a decision there wasn't a social security system in place at that time, and with all that she could see around her, she felt that in order to give me the best chance in life, the best thing that she could do, which was to put me up for adoption. Look, I was able to, I was brought up in a family where my dad actually was a Second World War veteran, and so there was a story there for me as I sort of watched him watch what happened during the Second World War, and particularly through the Holocaust. That was a very, very big sort of story in my household because of my own father's experience of that. And one of the things that really helped me to understand was that we are all capable of everything, and really every move we make is a moment in time where we can either take us in one direction or the other. And so that was something very powerful for me as a child, to understand that, to not have that hidden away as a truth of the human condition. And then subsequently when I was able to reconnect with my birth mother and then hear her story, it helped me to really understand how the environment in which we provide the right social safety net, the way in which we can ensure that people are supported at key points in time, is fundamental to enabling us to have that sort of protective system in place. And that's been a great story for me to reconnect with my birth mother and then meet my half brother and half sister. And then a few years later, I fell in love with a woman and said, well, that's one of those things where you go, it kind of shakes your world in a way, and then it helps you understand what it can be like to be the other, to experience discrimination, and to have that kind of understanding that, the questions that sometimes are seen as sort of technical policy ones are fundamentally about the way in which we move through the world and we treat each other as human beings. And so I kind of always remember that in searching for the next move in a political sense or a policy sense, understanding the human condition, and that ultimately would be preferred to be motivated out of a place of love and care, is very powerful. We don't want to be in a place of fear and division. I'm absolutely convinced of that through personal experience, and also the research is in that is actually a far more powerful place in which we want to act as human beings. And of course our challenge is to help to keep the doors open, to build those relationships, to have confidence that when we are looking to build systems that are about a collective benefit, that are about a community interest, that is a much more powerful place for us to be on the evidence, and also in terms of what the community, human beings really prefer and want. We don't like to be divided. We don't like to live in a place of fear. And we certainly don't want to feel like we are being locked out because we don't personally have enough money at any point in time. And of course that's currently a big part of some of the challenges we face in the health area.
Yeah, so we were talking this morning, I guess, about, you touched on this, the taking money from the lowest income earners while giving tax breaks to the richest. And I guess we didn't talk too much about the health impacts of that, but what role do you see, the powerful groups in the medical space like the AMA and the RACGP and others in lobbying on poverty, and how important is poverty when you're talking about health?
Well, look, obviously it's front and centre in terms of, at the moment, in terms of whether or not you will have good health outcomes is directly associated with your economic and social conditions. And so again, we've got an excellent body of evidence about that. And of course, we have to then think about how we design a healthcare system that removes the barriers that are associated with your economic and social circumstances, and also to what extent there is an economic efficiency to be gained from that. And that's why, for example, ACOSS is at this point very clear in saying the private health insurance rebate is a failed experiment. We think that the $6 billion plus that is being, the cost of that, and rapidly growing, would much better be spent by building and developing a universal healthcare system. We know that there are some pretty powerful interests involved in that debate. Obviously, it's very important for us to stay connected with groups like the AMA, the Public Health Association, many of those who are expert in the field. But ultimately, this is a community debate that will happen. And so we have to continue to work together to present good information to the public, and also to create the enablers for the community's voice to be heard. Ultimately, all of this will, in some way, shape or other, be shaped by our political system. And so this is where collaborations with universities that are doing high quality, excellence, evidence-based research to help to craft what the policies are that should deliver on our basic fundamental needs as human beings, to not feel like we are being sicker, that we can't get access to, very frightening moments in time when you get hit with a chronic illness, for example, that your sense of being able to get high quality care should not be determined by whether, how much money you've got in the bank. And of course, we've got a system that's pretty much setting that out in a big way. I think one of our big mistakes is to assume that because we of the sources of information that we access, that we're not sometimes bigger than we think we are. I think there is a great thirst in the community for a sense of the public good, for finding the common ground, for us to see ourselves as communities. I think the last federal election spoke very loud and clearly that we have got some major scepticism from the public about what is on offer from the, particularly the government that had just got over the line, and also some of what's offered from the major parties. And so in the community of interest between the academic community and civil society, we should be very confident that where our evidence is clear, we should powerfully speak the truth of what we see in terms of seeing universal healthcare as a really effective, both at the sort of community sense of community and shared ownership, that we're all in this together, and also, frankly, in the financing of it, because the private health insurance rebate is very expensive, and we're not really seeing the gains that some might have hoped we would have seen in terms of overall population health outcomes.
And what's your perspective on a basic income? There's been a lot of talk about that recently, and some people were discussing it this morning on Twitter in the debate about this forum. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Look, I think this is a topic which is throwing up a great thirst in the community to understand how do we provide security in terms of your economic circumstances in a rapidly changing environment, in terms of jobs, industries, people losing their employment, not confident about where the next jobs will come from. There is appropriately a very hot new debate about how, if we look at an economic system when we have access to shared resources, and that's through a tax system, is there a better way for us to organise the distribution of the income so that we can guarantee a decent level of access to the essentials as we continue to explore the new ways in which we get the engine room of the economy. Now, I don't have a clear position from ACOSS, for example, today on that one. We're actively involved in those important debates about the social security system, which of course was built in the 70s, to what extent that has stood this test of time, and we need to be protecting it and filling the gaps that have been created, and to what extent it is time for us to look at how we might provide a protective floor right across the population in terms of income, and whether that may be into the future a better way, more efficient, more sense of community, and enable us to provide the right tax base in order to sustain that. And of course, tax is a pretty important system to bind us together as well.
Just finally, you're going to be on Q&A on Monday night with, arguably the god of public health, Michael Marmot. What are you sort of hoping to take into that debate? There's definitely going to be some talk about the private health insurance rebate, I would say.
Well, look, we'll be very clear. In our view, it's a failed experiment. It was an exercise in whether or not we could get efficiencies in the healthcare system through a privatised approach. I don't think we should shy away from stating things clearly when we see it on the evidence, and I don't think we should not underestimate that whilst in the sort of mass communication systems that we've got, we might not see all the debates that are going on. I think if you go into sort of the much more diverse environment, you will see that there are many people who are questioning, what am I getting for the, being essentially forced into this sort of private health insurance system? To what extent is it actually delivering? At key points when I go, most of it's out of pocket anyway. Is there a better way to do this? We think there is, and so in a time scale of having built a system, which is not that old actually, private health insurance rebate, we shouldn't think it's always been there. It hasn't always been there. We think it's time to nail it and say that is a failed experiment, and we could do a lot more if we redistributed the revenue from that in a more equitable way to provide a protective system for the whole of community, where we all have a shared interest in building a really fantastic healthcare system. I guess we'll see how the debates go on Q&A. Always, you never know what will come up there, but I'm really delighted that the ABC has provided an opportunity for us to have another debate about how we make sure that we are a more equal society, and that we are meeting the basics, the human needs that we have, because ultimately, when you're born, we're all pretty much the same with the sense of our need, and we return to understand that truth as we go into older life. And I think today has been a fantastic demonstration. There's been a lot of younger researchers in the room and some of the elders of this centre, and I think that connection between the very young and those who have seen it all and say, look, this is a newfangled thing for the moment, but actually there are some pretty essential truths to what humans need, families need, kids need, and our job is to really nail and be confident when we're on a good policy that we shouldn't be put off by the fact that it might not be the newest thing in town. We've just got to stay with it and really assert that it's the right direction to go in, and I think that was a really great discussion today on that front.
All the best with it. Thank you.
Thank you.